and welcome to this episode 181 of Frame and Reference. You're about to drop into a conversation between me, Kenny McMillan, and my guest, Sean Emer, DP of Renner. Enjoy. Yeah. Have you been watching anything cool recently?
Man, I've been so behind on watching stuff, just with this dearth of work that has come up recently. I've heard very good things about the new Severance. That's on my list for next week. But honestly, all the watch time that we get right now, my wife and I were just watching. We're trying to go through all of the Star Trek shows, from the original series, and we're gonna try and get through everything up until now. So we just finally finished the original series, and we're into the next generation. So anytime we have free time, we're just like, oh yeah, Picard, let's go.
Yeah, I've got TNG on the old remade Blu-ray.
Hell yeah!
Because they went back and rescanned. It's probably the version you're watching, I would assume. But I
think we're just watching whatever they have on Prime. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's actually the redone one. But they went back and they rescanned all the negatives because that was all shot on film.
Yeah.
And then they had to redo all the visual effects. They didn't try to make it too cool. They didn't update them. They just redid them. So they blend better.
So it's like the spiritual successor. It's
more that there's a lot of footage that they had to the mats would slip and stuff. So they kind of just had to polish it. I don't know if they fully
So it's it's the same blaster colors and beam effects, but now not broken.
Yeah. But cool. When you get to my personal favorites, obviously Next Generation, but when you get to Deep Space Nine,
I've heard that's the good one.
It starts to fucking go.
Yeah, it gets dark, right?
It gets a little dark, but also it's when they start doing narratives across a season.
So a full episodic kind of thing.
Instead of which I love the classic, day by day, because
the procedural, kind of Law and Order in space.
Yeah, that's when you get to the newer ones. Strange New Worlds is excellent.
I've heard that it's terrible from all of my Star Trek fans, and I've heard that it's really good from everybody else. So my guess is
Strange New Worlds, or are you thinking of Discovery?
No, I've only heard from anybody that Discovery is bad.
Yes.
But I've heard Strange New Worlds is good. But my Trekkie fans who are Picard #1, none of them, will look at anything that was made after, 97 or whichever. Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. It's just seeing the difference in style between the original series and Next Gen is super cool.
Yeah. Well, and it's fascinating to go watch all those behind the scenes and stuff and see just how much I think there's a few American cinematographers, but there is so much grip just outside of frame of it. It's wild how much work, because you just see it looks so natural. You're like, oh, they probably just have the way we would shoot it today. It's probably all just in the ceiling.
And then just put a bunch of light mats up there.
No, yeah, they're everything that's screen side is just oppressive.
It's insane the amount of work from both a crew and an equipment perspective that is required for the quote unquote classic studio style of cinematography where marks are set for the actors and they step onto their mark, and at that mark everything is exactly right, and it's just such a different way from how we operate now.
Yeah. Do you find you learn a lot from watching older shows like that? Because obviously you can't take everything from them, but
yeah,
some styles are just too. Because I know with Renner, you were trying to lean a little more classical, but when you're watching something like Star Trek, do you find yourself taking notes at all?
I do. The second time I watch it, I do. 9 times out of 10, when I sit down and to take my notes and I watch it, I end up just watching the movie.
Yeah, I have that problem with this show.
It, which is a good thing, right? Because it has to be able to do that to me for it to be work worth paying attention to. So I'll have to go through it a couple times and then I'll do my notes. And it's more helpful than I think a lot of people think it is. You see people going online or in film schools or whatever, and they're trying to ask for these diagrams and how did they light this shot, and how do I make it look like this? And I'm like, well, it's right there. you make it look like that by look at your monitor with your image, then look at that, what looks different, change
Yeah.
something, and you rinse and repeat. And the difference between a professional DP and somebody who's just coming up is how quickly they can do that, right? It's easy enough, especially with like hard lighting, like the old studio lighting. It's easy enough in any given scene to see where all their sources are,
Mm.
because they don't hide them, they don't motivate them. There's no VFX hiding them. You don't have to wonder like, hey, why is the camera not in the mirror? It's right there. It's sort of like it's like open source filmmaking in a way, especially in close ups. You just look at their eyes and it's like there's the fill light, there's the key, there's the bumper, like all of that. So from that side, it was super easy for that end of study for Renner, because Robert, the director, had asked. Okay, so when I first start talking to a director and about a movie, and I'm reading the script, obviously I'm watching something in my head, right?
Mm.
When I'm reading the script, and I just want to make sure, broad strokes, that what I'm watching is similar, at least, to what they were watching when they wrote it, or when they read it. So I ask him, like, give me a few movies to watch so that I'm like in that mindset, and then I'll go through it, and then we can start talking about the nitty gritty colors and things like that. And he gave me, for this futuristic sci-fi, kind of movie. He said The Apartment, the
All
Billy
right.
Wilder
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
1960 movie with Jack Lemmon, and Shirley MacLaine. Uh, Black and white studio lighting. There's no ceiling. You'll never see a ceiling in your life. And like hard slashes on the walls, and everybody's got a hair light and a fill light and everything. And I was like, cool, let's go. Right? Like that'll be fun. Um, and then the second movie he gave me to watch was the 2022 horror movie Megan, about
Oh,
the
yeah.
AI
Very,
robot.
very popular movie. Yeah.
And I was like, what? At the height of my film school, essay writing pretension, I'm not sure that I could have written, a thesis on the similarities between those two movies.
But that's how you get a good, when people talk about, oh, like expert steal or whatever, I'm
Yeah,
always like, not from one source. You got to pick
yeah,
at least three. Usually
yeah,
three is the best move. And then
yeah.
the further apart they are, the better. Because if you steal from what, The Matrix and Dark City and um shit, what's his name? Christian Bale, Equilibrium, that's going to be a pretty samey movie. That's more of an
That's
homage.
that's
But
a great trilogy you just came up with there. Three
yeah,
three equally excellent movies, only one of which is really known by people.
yeah,
More people need to watch Dark City and Equilibrium.
100%. But
But
yeah,
it's like,
it's
I,
awesome
I
to pull
think
those two.
I think part of it is producers and directors get like a little bit of that stereotypical like bad rap in terms of they're not real artists. They just walk into an office and they say it's Severance meets The Office.
Right.
It'll be great, doll. And there's a sort of flippancy that we just sort of associate with mashing up movies like that. But it's super effective. After my eyes rolled back down from the back of my head and I started thinking about those two references, I was like, okay, all right, so you want to shoot it in like modern zeitgeist. We're gonna do soft lighting. We're not gonna like walk into marks in every shot and put in a grid and all of that. But you want to have a little bit of that like set play that you get in the apartment and in all of the 50s and the 60s, where
A lot of moving masters.
yeah, moving masters, the blocking is part of the composition, and and just like little flourishes. The way we put it, and when we sort of like clicked on it, was like the font of the movie, the style of it. The letter is a futuristic letter, but the little serifs that we're putting on, those are going to come from the 60s. So
Sure.
we have our soft lighting, our saturated colors, keyside kickers, all that kind of thing that we get nowadays. But then I would throw in unmotivated, super hard backlights, and we'd put a slash on the wall every now and then, when he was feeling it. We did a few split diopter shots.
Hell yeah.
He cut them out of the movie. I'm so
Oh,
angry.
Todd
I,
Vaziri's in shambles.
I know, right? I was really proud of myself because I did all the calculations. Like we have to make sure the doors are this far apart in the hallway so that the thing will fit. Um, and they worked, but ultimately in the edit they didn't work because they gave away stuff that we weren't supposed to give away, and we kind of got like a little bit caught up in the style of it at the time. So he made the right choice, but I will die mad about it.
Yeah. So how do you that that brings up an interesting thought because like if you think about how it can be easy to tell when a student makes a film because like the language is disjointed. How
Mhm.
were you able to glue it together in such a way that it didn't feel just taking the new and the old and like what were kind of the bridges that made sure it all felt cohesive?
I think that what you have to do is before you start shooting, you have to decide sort of like what the algorithm's going to be in your head when you're making a creative decision.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what you don't want to do ever, not even in the context of this kind of stylistic thing, what you don't ever want to do is come up with the plan right there. Which is not to say that you can't be flexible, but you should arrive at every scene and every shot with an intention and with an idea of what you're going to do. So really, it's just planning ahead of time and thinking about it. So and it sounds like unartistic and uninspired, but a lot of times it is to do with your limitations, right? So I knew that we wanted these little, flourishes of classic stuff, which if you don't listen to this interview, you might not even notice when you watch the movie. But
Sure.
they were fun for us. Uh, but we knew that we were shooting in a used car warehouse in North Carolina. Uh, I was not going to have cam lock power, like I'm not going to have. There's no grid. We are going to build sets, but
And you got to
there's no.
translate.
And we got to translate.
That
Yeah, yeah,
was
yeah. So
cool.
yeah. Oh my gosh, that was a super. It was a nerd dream
Yeah,
for
yeah,
me
yeah.
to get to work with it. And we did quote the LED wall first because that's what you do. And the cost of the LED wall was more than like my production budget.
Right. Yeah.
So it was like, I guess we're doing a translate.
Yeah.
Good thing we're doing a '60s kickback on some of the style.
Yeah.
Um, but so I know that I don't have a grid, so I'm not going to do set plays where people walk through the lighting because there's no way to rig it. And we could have put in a grid, but that's crew and equipment and extra days, and there's just no money for it. We did this whole thing. I don't know the exact numbers for the budget, but the budget and the timing of the shoot, which we did in 15 days, was essentially right. It's a lifetime movie. That's the amount of resources you get for a lifetime movie.
Yeah. One of those
Uh,
speedy Christmas flicks that they make 10 of in a week.
exactly. And but it's Renner and an AI and all of this mayhem that is unleashed by it instead of a girl learning to give up on her career and move home. Uh, and that was like our thing where Robert and I were talking. We were like, we need to make sure that this is not a lifetime movie.
Yeah.
Not that it was going to be one, but that we never sat back the way you're tempted to. And I've worked on lifetime movies before.
They seem fun,
Um,
honestly.
dude, they're
I
so
want to
much
do
fun.
it.
They're so much fun. I gaffed a bunch of them for a friend of mine years ago, and it was insanely fun. The pay is terrible. The stories are uninspired, but uh, because there's no pressure, like we all know it's just going to go to Lifetime and somebody's going to put it on, while they're doing dishes and it's going to be in the other room. Like we're just playing,
Well, and people
you
love
know?
them. Like
Yeah.
if you were making movies that no one watched, like that would suck.
Yeah.
But people fucking love those things, and
I love
I
the
don't blame them.
Christmas ones. I
Yeah, yeah,
like every December, me and my wife, we sit down and we start watching all of the terrible Christmas ones. It's like,
exactly.
which term are they going to use this time? The big city or the city or
Yeah,
it's so good. It's so good. Because it's formulaic and it's familiar and it's like fast food, right? Like you always know what you're going to get and you know that it's terrible, but
but it's a
it's
step
there's
up
no
from
risk.
McDonald's. It's a it's an
Hell
In and
yeah.
Out.
Hell yeah. Where's the logo? Where's the logo?
Yeah, yeah.
So we didn't want it to feel like that. And it was going to be like that, because the script obviously is not a Lifetime script, but we didn't want the filmmaking in terms of the color and the set design and everything to feel like we had Lifetime checked out,
Mm,
at any time. So we basically made up for that with just tons and tons of prep. Where Robert and he wasn't actually in Los Angeles for a lot of the prep. He was in Europe finishing another movie of his, and we would just get on Zoom and talk for hours, just going through the scenes, reading them, each of us on our own computer. We'd just be silent for a few minutes as we read it, and we come back and we're like, well, what if we started it with this kind of shot? Or, oh, what was the scene before? If we're going to end the scene with the push in on him, maybe we start this one with a pull out from a detail. Like if they're at the table, we'll pull out from broccoli or something like that.
mm.
Just like scene bumpers, and that would sort of like get us into the style. I was like, oh yeah, and then we come out, and then that'll be good because then we can come across the table over here, and we pitched that way. And Sonia, our production designer, gave us floor plans of her like proposed set before it had been built. And I'd like screen share Photoshop and, like move, this is the Renner icon and the Jamie icon. And what if they both went over here? Cause then we can shoot here and we'll have, like the big city and everything. And we went through the whole movie, the entire movie like that, over a bunch of marathon sessions. And then we like chilled for like a week. And then we went back and we, did it again. And that gave us like a really good idea of the parts of the movie that we knew and the
Mm.
parts of the movie that we didn't know. Because there were plenty of scenes that even multiple times through, we were kind of like, yeah, that would probably cover it, right? Like we weren't feeling it. So we knew what scenes on the day we had to take time with the actors and be like, so how do you guys see yourselves, moving through this? And one of those scenes actually is one of my favorite shots in the movie. Was completely unplanned. Is when Jamie's trying to leave, and Renner chases after her and is like trying to get her to stay, and they're all in the hallway, and they end up in this 50-50 shot with the A-frame splitting the frame in the middle. We just couldn't figure out in shot listing what we wanted to do for that. Because when you're looking at a Photoshop file, it just looks like a rectangle with two circles in it, and it's like, what is this? They shouldn't be in the hallway, but the hallway, we know the hallway is going to look cool, so we want it to be in the hallway. But like, how are we going to shoot this? It doesn't make any sense. And then we had the actors run through it and sort of like find like the blocking where they were going to stop and they were going to go and then they were going to go again. And I just had the camera on a Dana dolly with the wall flown away from the hallway because I just wanted to like look at options. And they were doing the movement. I was like, oh, what if I counter moved here? And like, oh, yo, guys, hey, over here, just a little bit. Yeah. And, we just went from there. So it's all about just having that mixture, right? Of, preparation and knowing what you want to do stylistically and visually, and then also being open to just throw it all out and, follow the story on the set. But always within the context of, how you're getting into your scene, how you're getting out of your scene. You're not going to cut from two shots that are too similar, so it's going to be like weird, and then the editor comes looking for you at night with a knife.
Right.
It's just what it's all about.
So how much time did you have for prep?
Well, I got the first copy of the script in 2021, so I had known about the movie for over a year before we started shooting. Which is not to say that we spent all that time in prep. The script went through a bunch of revisions, and we were back and forth on, like where we're going to shoot it, and how much time do we have, and all of that influences, like the overall plan. So I would say like hard prep, for the movie was probably about a month, not
Right.
full time, but about a month where we knew what the plan was, and Robert was working on his stuff, and I'd do a bunch of shot listing and send it to him, and he'd be like, love this, love this, love this, might fire you over this, like, and we go down the list and sort of like, hash it out back and forth, like increasing the resolution every time.
Yeah.
And then we went to North Carolina, and we saw the set, and we were there a week before we started shooting, or at least a few days before we started shooting. And me and Robert just walked through the set with whatever PA or his mom or whoever was available to us, and just use the Director's Finder app to, like test all the shots and make sure that, the walls were going to line up. It's like, oh shit, we're going to see the ceiling here. Maybe we need to, all that kind of thing.
Mm.
So almost every shot in the movie, I have a cheesy, cadrage picture of sitting
Oh,
in some folder somewhere.
and then there's
Uh,
always whoever you have sitting in, just like
yeah, or
absolutely dead face.
our poor PA who was like sitting in for Renner. Just he had like this big like poofy hair. We knew that Renner was gonna be like almost like a military style crop.
Right,
So
squared up.
every time I was framing it, I was like, right. It's not, it's not like, but that was good, especially being in the space and getting to walk it and shot block the whole movie. That saved us so much time.
Yeah.
And just the fact that we're not doing company moves or loadouts or load-ins or anything, that saves us effectively a full day probably over the course of a week of production.
Walkaways are great.
I love it. I loved it. It would have been cool if we could have stayed there. Like we finish shooting and then we like walk across the room and then there's like N64s or something. But
Right.
it wasn't too bad. It was like a 20-minute drive. We stayed at a bunch of like college dorms from like a film school, and part of the thing was they wanted to get some of their like film students or something like as interns on it. It was the whole experience shooting there was like the opposite of LA.
Right.
Everybody there was excited, that a movie was shooting, and like the local bar and grill catered us. They like gave us the good stuff. We got bacon for breakfast. It was great because our producers like they went to bat for us, and KT, one of our producers, like went out, made friends with the whole town, and made us feel very welcome and everything, where we could go and do karaoke on our day off to bleed off the stress. And there was like a hot air balloon festival down the road that we went to on our second week. It was good. We were like a family on that one, more
Yeah.
than just a crew.
I to your point about staying there, I last month just did a gig for my friend's cocktail group, and they have a hotel that the bar is like a part of.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were filming in the hotel. We all stayed in the hotel, and that
Yeah.
bar is so good. Like it's like a world renowned that I never left the hotel for a week. It was awesome. I would roll out of bed at like, whatever, eight
That's
o'clock. And
great.
they're all business people. So it's like 9 to 5. Like it was so chill.
That's amazing. Yeah,
Yeah. And they're
those are the
walkaways.
jobs that keep you going, right?
Yeah. And they paid well. Like it was a dream. They were like, are you
It's
like,
a
is this on
unicorn
for
job.
you? Yeah, no, 100%. I did want to know about Rob, because I was given a flick through his social media, and he looks
Sure.
about our age, but incredibly accomplished. How I'm not asking for his like
Yeah.
biography or whatever, but kind of like what was his path to meeting you, and how did you guys link up?
He he's super driven. He's a guy who just like wills things into existence. He basically decided he wanted to be a filmmaker, and filmmakers make films, so therefore I will make films.
Yeah,
And
because he
just like
started in
he's
like
like,
politics, right? It's not at like the UN at the beginning.
did he?
The
That might be
first
right.
photos
Yeah,
on his
I
Instagram are
know.
him at the UN and then doing a movie about Syria.
Yeah, Robert is he runs a company, Social Impact Entertainment. I
Mm.
don't know if he's like the CEO. He's somehow involved on the upper ends with it. Uh, and they're from an activist perspective, they try and do good work at all times, which I respect, and that's great. And it was through SIE, I think, that I had originally met him, some movie, years and years and years ago, that I had worked on, and KT, the producer, one of the producers on Renner, had worked on, and he was just like a friend, and we would see him at parties and things like that, and then we got more involved with him. In 2021, I think was my first feature that I worked on with Rob. That was Those Who Walk Away, which was like a oneer, like a fake one take movie,
Oh yeah, that's
horror
fun.
movie. I was the gaffer on that one, and man, that was a ton of fun. Trying to do horror lighting cues and everything on that in a single take. These 20-minute takes with monsters and props and everything. And I think after that, the amount of technical work that I had done on there sort of like stuck in his mind. So when he came around to Renner and another short film that we had worked on in between, he had thought of me because he wanted all these inset lights and everything in the set for Renner. Uh, so he sent me the script, and we were off to the races from there.
Yeah. Had he seen the short you did with Sam? What's his name? Sam Tahan.
Sam Tahan. I don't think he had seen it. No. That was, when did we shoot that? I think we shot that in 2022, right? I
I'm
think it
gonna
would
go
have been
with
in
yes.
2022. Yeah. So you would think I would know my own IMDb, right?
Bro, any time between 18 and now is 1 year. That's just
Yeah,
one
absolutely. It's
continuous.
it's it's all the same fever dream, man. Um, oh my gosh, I've become what I've always hated. I'm searching myself on IMDb.
Oh, bro, sometimes you have to see what that star meter's at.
Yeah, for real. Oh gosh, movie 43 is still up here. That's terrible. That was my first job in LA.
Was on movie 43.
Yeah, I was a PA on the Terrence Howard section of movie 43. Like literally, I didn't even have a bed yet. I was sleeping on the floor of the apartment I rented. It was like my third day of my first week in LA, and like an old friend from film school was like, "Hey, I need PAs for a Hollywood movie." I think she said Hollywood movie, and I was like, "Yeah,
Fuck yeah, I made it.
I made it." It was like an ASC DP on that and everything. And I was like on cloud nine, thinking I was hot shit, and then we saw the movie.
So you put it on your own because you can add anything. You can say you
No,
worked
no,
on
I'm just
Avatar.
I'm
They
just
just added
credited
you.
on it. Yeah,
All
they
right.
they must have. I certainly didn't do it. Um,
What film school did you go to?
I went to Hofstra
Oh,
University
word.
on Long Island.
Oh, I was about to. So this is not.
Yeah,
Ugh.
do it, do it.
I grew up listening to a lot of comedy albums.
Oh yeah.
Famously, Bill Cosby went to Hofstra, and that's the only reason why I know it.
I'm sure we have somebody good
Yeah, you've
we
got to
can
have
put on
someone
the
better than
list.
that.
I think we had. It's so long now since I've graduated. I've forgotten all the accolades I'm supposed to connect myself to through my alma mater.
Yeah.
Um,
Hey man, ASU. Actually, no, ASU had we had Barry Bonds.
that's
We
pretty
had
good. That's pretty good.
obviously James Harden. Although he's depending on what team you're a fan of, he's evil.
Oh, I see. I've been credited on Nosferatu. That's not right.
Have you? Really?
Yeah,
Don't change it. Just let it.
I'll take it
As what?
as a grip. Which I did come up through lighting. Yeah, my first jobs after movie 43 were as a swing on AFI movies because a bunch of my friends had
Sure. You learn a
started at
ton on
AFI.
those.
Yeah, and that's just like you will. It's film school basically for free, unless you go there. Then it's $250,000
Yeah.
or whatever it is. But it seems to work, man. I mean, they have careers. A lot
And
of my work comes from those DPs that I met at AFI. Uh,
almost
and
every DP that I've interviewed on this show that went to AFI are the ones that have like stellar careers. Not that everyone who has a
yeah.
stellar career went to AFI, but all the ones who went to AFI are killing it.
Yeah, it's a really good technical film school
Yeah.
because it's real DPs and real editors and all that stuff talking about their actual work that we have seen and they have all fantastic gear. I mean, I haven't been there now in 10 years or so, but when we were there, it was a huge learning experience for me. And I finally found it. Test drive, the thing I did with Sam Tahan was 2022. So it was after we did Those Who Walk Away. So yeah, I was much better friends with Robert at that point. So he did see it.
Well, because I was wondering, just because they're both sci-fi. I was wondering if he was like, "Oh, we'll pick you up for sci-fi," or if it was just kind of pinch.
Yeah, no, I'd like to think so. I enjoyed my work on Test Drive, but they're very different stylistically. The two of them. Where Test Drive was like a much more. I don't know if you've seen it
I have
or
not.
not,
No.
but yeah, it's like a more bleach bypassy kind of gritty look
Children of
with like some.
Men-ish.
Yeah, exactly in that vein. Whereas Renner was supposed to be more. It was supposed to feel like we were in a set, but not in a set. And it was supposed to feel like polished and clean and clinical and whatnot. So we didn't do any filtration or the grade wasn't super aggressive on it.
And you were
And
Alexa Mini and Angenews, right?
yeah, it was a Alexa Mini and the Ingenue Optimo 15. The numbers are so random. It's like 15 to 42 and 40 to 70
I,
something.
I feel like when that happens, it's like the engineers just make whatever the
yeah,
most efficient thing is, and then
yeah.
they go in and measure it, and they go, "That's what it is."
Yeah, the Ingenue engineers made exactly one lens that's difficult to make. It's the 12-1, and
Yep.
everybody uses it, and everything else they're just like on vacation, and they still work great. So
Yeah. You
it's
know,
a winning combo.
I do want to talk about gaffing more, but real quick, I kind of wanted to know
Yep.
just because I know how it works on like kind of I don't want to say lower end, but uh, when you have Ari writing a little feature about you on Instagram and stuff, how does that
Sure.
come about? Is it because you went through Ari Rental and then they just tag you, like they go, all right, let's make a thing, or is like what are the kind of promotional deals that happen there?
I think I mean it's in a little bit of a sense it's the business, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
The which is not to speak ill of Ari or any given manufacturer of equipment, because the truth is 90% of the professional art and the like culturally impactful art that's being made in the cinematography space is going to be shot with Ari or Red or Sony. So they deserve their spot, but it's definitely something I think where the movie itself sort of creates that coverage,
Mm-hmm.
not so much the work. I think if it had looked terrible, it wouldn't have happened.
Sure, yeah.
At least that's what I told myself in the mirror, right? After they had emailed me. But I do think it's part of the fact that it's Frankie Muniz and he's coming back, and starring in this movie, and people love him. I was a huge fan of Malcolm in the
Oh,
Middle,
absolutely.
and I was super excited, because I had been creatively invested in Renner long before Frankie was cast, so I didn't. I had like these like fake people in my head that was going to play every part, and I don't remember what they look like anymore. But I remember when I was hearing about the casting process, and they said that they had gotten Frankie Muniz. I was like, no way, Frankie, that's awesome! Like that's
Yeah.
so cool. It's going to be super fun to see him play this kind of role as opposed to like how everybody remembers him. And I think it's that curiosity and that kind of attention is what maybe has brought more attention to even like the technical level, like Ari calling it out and everything.
Well, and also like less experienced filmmakers might hear that and go like, oh, uh, poo poo or whatever. But it's like that's literally how you sell a film,
It
unless
is.
it's already
It is.
you need talent.
Yeah. It's how you sell a film, and I know that there's that artist that has the little flame inside of all of our hearts. That's all about it is only about the story, it's and all of this business. It is nothing, It's
Yeah.
and that's true in a sense, but that's only really true if you want to do your art and then just have money already somehow. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. Yeah.
because we're artists and we're also professionals. We need to be paid if we want to continue doing this. And to get paid, you need to make money, and to make money, you need to be able to sell it. And most people who go and pay to watch movies don't care about art.
Yeah.
They
Or
care
even
to the point that it offends them or not, but that's about it.
yeah.
Um,
At best, you get directed by, and people will go see it. But
Yeah, but I also think it's important to remember that there's a little bit of a cynical nature of that conversation, right? Like the movie
sure.
gets attention because Frankie's in it, not because of like my cinematography or Sonia's production design. But that's not entirely like Frankie killed it. He was a great actor in this. Like I was impressed, and that was super fun to see him come alive and sort of like break out in my head of like the Malcolm type role. And it's
Sure.
not like he hadn't acted between those two things, but that was the last like impression I had.
Mhm.
So for me, it was entertaining even on set to see it, and I know it'll be entertaining for people to watch it. So while that is like a selling point, and I know as an artist I'm supposed to say selling points are bad, I'd pay
See,
to see
I
it.
disagree because like it's as someone who is still trying to get people to like even to listen to this show. It's like, how do you hook people? Well, you say that Hoyta's on the show.
Yeah.
That
It's
will get
the big names. Or you had Greg Fraser was the one that like really, got me, and I was like, oh, frame and reference, it's cool.
right. And it's like, and then what ends up happening is those conversations are all great, but 9 times out of 10, it's people that like no one's heard of, even in the cinematography space that like, yeah, buddy, that are far more informative, but it's also like, do you listen to be entertained or do you listen to for education? I find the,
I mean, it's probably one and two. It's not like Greg Fraser would not know about
yeah, yeah,
cinematography, but it's also because he's working on such big projects, and he comes on frame and reference or any other interview, and that's like the 20th interview he's done that week, and
yeah.
he's just tired of talking about it. No, I don't mean to say that his interview with you was no good or anything. I
Oh,
haven't, gone through the whole thing, but I could see where that might happen, right? Where there's less like fire in it.
well, and so it's funny you say it. So I've always positioned this show as trying to give people who are on press tours something more entertaining to do, while like still get
I
still
like
trying to
that.
get the
Yeah, yeah,
information out of them, but like
yeah.
making it far more of a hang, and not trying to be like, well. So the interview with Jaron, uh, we kind of rolled into it, and I was talking to him about like how I hate when you listen to an interview and they go like, so tell us how you got started, and it's like, all right, so we're going to burn 15 minutes on this when someone can Google it.
Yeah.
And then I got like a couple comments and even one from a friend of mine who was like, bro, I don't do research, that's why I come to you. And I was like, oh, all right. So now I'm trying to figure out the balance between like doing the research for the people who only listen to this show and also not boring the guest and getting
Right.
them into that thing, because you don't want them to come here and then start getting into the rhythm and then giving you the same answers that, because then it's just,
It just goes around.
well,
Yeah.
then it's boring for me too.
Aw.
I'm the third wheel in this equation. I want to learn things.
Yeah, for real. I mean, I love the technical aspects and the little nitty gritty, like behind the scene things. That's what always excites me.
Yeah.
When I'm looking at work that I respect, it's like, how the fuck did they do that shot? That's insane, you know.
Yeah.
So I love all of that, but it is, I think, important to talk about, how do you get jobs? How do you get into the industry? How is it possible? Because for a lot of people who might be watching this or just online, just searching like how to become a filmmaker, it's got to be daunting, right? Like if you don't grow up in it.
Yeah. I find that, because I write for Pro Video Coalition. I still try to take an educational bent to a lot of things. I like
Yeah.
educating. Sometimes it's harder than others. Like I still get in arguments with people about how speed boosters give you the quote full frame look. And then people yell at me like I'm stupid. And I'm like, all right, well, I can't fight against just
Are these
like,
the same people telling you that the lens compression looks good?
yeah, yep. Just had that conversation on YouTube yesterday.
Yeah.
And
It's
so,
yeah,
but
it's there's a lot of misnomers out there.
yeah. And then
But
I'll bring in people like Matthew Duclos,
yep.
and I'll be like, can you explain it? And then he will, and then they go, yeah, but this influencer told me. Anyway, the point, information. Oh, for people wanting to get started, the thing I've learned more than anything through my own experience, through others, is it's like people always talk about networking. It's not networking. It's making friends
Making friends, yeah,
and just
absolutely.
waiting
I
and keeping
literally said
yourself
this
busy.
exact thing to somebody like just like an hour ago. That is what it is. It's making friends and being chill, like being
Mm.
somebody who is not upsetting to be around. You
And
know,
having a skill, obviously, but
yeah, but you don't need to max your stats there. You know what I
mm-mm.
mean? Like you don't have to be a level 20 fucking wizard to be hired to do magic if you just have good charisma.
Yeah,
If you play D&D, you know what I mean. But
yep,
it's I have gotten hired and will continue to get hired over people more talented than I am, artistically or technically, because I don't yell on set and I don't, like demean people or like fire, like people because I'm having a bad day, and I make dad jokes and I keep it late. And if somebody makes a mistake, unless it's a safety mistake, I don't snap at them or anything like that,
yeah.
because we're not. we're not doing rocket surgery. We're telling stories, and we're playing pretend, and we're doing that thing that we all wanted to do as kids when we would play with our action figures, on our couch, and this pillow is a mountain and everything. We're getting to do that for our jobs, and that's not the sort of space or life where we should be demeaning people.
Yeah.
So as long as you're good enough at your job that like the image is not detracted from, be cool, tell jokes, be friendly, invite me over for board games. I'll invite you over for board games,
Yeah.
and you're the first call.
Yeah. Kind, quick, and qualified in that order.
Ooh, I like that. Kind, quick, and
Just made that
qualified.
up. I'm
I'm
writing it
gonna
down.
I'm gonna kind, quick. It doesn't.
I know it's
Well,
not three Q's, but it's alliteration
yeah,
nonetheless.
yeah.
Yeah.
Quind? No.
Quine, quick, and qualified. Um, oh, I did want to go back to gaffing. So, a lot of DPs these days, um, especially these days, come through camera, right?
Yeah.
It's far more accessible. Concepts are a lot easier.
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
lighting comes last, which is unfortunate. What are
I
some of the
agree.
things that you learned as a gaffer coming up through the system that kind of pushed your looks over the edge from
Yeah.
amateur to professional?
So so for me, like it's basically what you said. A lot of DPs when they come to an image, when they literally think about an image for a shot, the first thing they see is the angle, or the shot size, or the perspective, the compression, whatever it is. The first thing that I see is light and color and the quality of it. I don't really see it like from a perspective yet, but I know I want it to be a cyan edge and like a little warm underlight. That should be soft with like shadow on the near side. That's because I came up through gaffing, and I know that that's not something that's super popular since so many DPs come from camera and they're very like composition based. But working with those DPs when I was a gaffer, I could see how much setting the light and lighting an environment would influence all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
And because the lighting is what literally gives like life, right, to the image. If you set that lighting intentionally to begin with and then frame around it, you can get like a much more polished or as polished image as if you did it the other way around. And for me, it's a lot easier to say, as a table scene, with a bunch of people sitting around a table. If I know how I want to light it, then that gives me tons of options about how to shoot it, where I'm not coming at it from an angle where I need this exact shot, so I must light it somehow for that, and now I'm stuck when I go to my other shots. It's kind of it's so hard to put into words because it's like an intuition that you develop, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because cinematography, composition, and lighting are kind of the same thing. They're like totally different tools. It's like camera placement versus like your lights, but they both control contrast in the image, right? And contrast meaning not just the brightness and the darkness, but just like the lines, like shit on your screen that makes it not just like a plain gray box. All of it is just about contrast, putting shapes on the screen and making things stand out and like trying to draw your attention this way or that way. So it's not that different to come at it from a lighting perspective. To me, it just makes more sense because I have like a stronger intuition for like soft light and a hard light and what an edge is going to do and how it's going to play if somebody moves through the space.
Mm-hmm.
And it's easier for me to use that as like my anchor point creatively in a scene. So if you watch the movie, you'll see there's a lot of scenes that are pretty aggressive in terms of like the lighting or like the color play in it, because that's where we started, and then we started like framing around it to make that like a character in the scene, basically.
Yeah, I mean, whenever I do way more documentary than I ever thought I would these days. But like when I walk into a room, my first thought is, all right, where's the window? All right, where am I
Yeah,
putting the key based on
yeah,
the window? Plop them down, because
yeah. It
documentary is
it
way more
totally.
quick than qualified.
Yeah, I I think the camera approach to cinematography, where you set your frame and then just like beat the world into submission to make it work, is great if you have like $10 million for your week of shooting, but
Yeah.
not so much otherwise. So it's much easier to create like good lighting in your space and then find the shots that work with it. As long as those
100%.
shots are like, like on point with what you're doing. Like if you have a weak character, you're not going to like shoot them from below, unless you can find a way to make them, weak in that way. But it's
Yeah.
it's super fun, man. It's like I just love doing it every time. I've done. There's not many shots that I haven't done or tried to do at least once. But there's no shots that I ever go to do where I'm bored with it. Even if it's just another over the shoulder medium close up of somebody sharing their feelings on a couch, I'm like, ooh, what could I do this time? Remember that last time when I did that thing? Like, I wonder if there's like a way, and you just play with it. It's art. It's supposed to be fun, not regimented.
Yeah. Do you see, a lot of, I think we're both similarly online. There's a lot of conversations about, movies these days look flat or whatever, boring. Look at these movies from the 90s. They looked better. And there's obviously the like sort of nostalgia bias of it all.
Yeah.
But where do you see that argument potentially coming? Because I still can't quite wrap my head around it. I'm like, I think you guys are just watching like one movie. There's
I
so,
think,
living in
yeah,
LA, you have the advantage of going to see fucking everything.
it's
But
I think it's a lot of the nostalgia thing, and it's basically the same as when people say that the music now sucks and the music back then was
right.
better, and it's like, well, you're only remembering the bangers from back then, and
Yep.
you're listening to the Drek from now, and it's kind of the same thing, where we have a sort of like mixing of styles, where budget, quick television, like entertainment, has leveled up into like high level professional workflows.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that the style is going up. So you're still getting like the straight to TV movies and TV shows that would never have entered the conversation in the 90s. But they're being shot on Alexas and whatnot now. And they're going really fast, and they're there to make their days, and like make the bell ring, and everybody goes home, and everything. And that, combined with the fact that we have so much like VFX ability and so much grading potential now compared to back then when you write your printer lights and that's basically all you got unless it was a real movie. There's a lot of polish that goes on top of these things. And a lot of times, if there's not like a strong artistic direction behind it, I can see where it sort of like goes to a sort of like bleary, like mono style.
Yeah.
Great example would be the Total Recall remake, which, why they remake movies that were already good is ridiculous. They
Remake
should
bad
remake the bad
movies.
ones. Yeah. But if you look at the
So
Total
with you
Recall
on that
remake,
one.
it's exactly what these people are talking about, where it is a bland style, right? Because it's uninspired, it's uninformed. The people are making a Lifetime movie with the budget of a bigger one, and it's every scene's just one fucking color, and it's just no good.
I will say though, to my point about people love like Lifetime movies,
Yeah.
I love like C or B sci-fi movies. I'll watch all of them.
Oh, they're great. They're great.
Those
But
are
they
the
have to
comfort
be made by
watches.
people who believe in the idea. If you
Yeah.
make a C sci-fi movie because you want to make a C sci-fi movie, I'm not going to like it. You need to be the guy who thinks you're making, like an A sci-fi movie, and then when I watch your C level one, I'm like, oh man, yo, this is lit.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
that's
yeah.
great.
Like
It's the
Dread.
same thing. Yeah, yeah.
But I
That's
put I
so
put
good.
Dread in the A, but
Well,
I don't think they knew they were making it. Or they probably did, but Dread was sick.
it gets like that, but it's basically the same thing I'm saying, right? Like this, the milieu of gray, smeary, monotone movies that a lot of people complain about isn't. It's not like a disaster in cinematography or art. It's just the presence of like lower effort art being made with high quality tools.
Yeah.
Because we don't have low quality tools anymore.
Right.
Back in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, you could make low quality television and film with bad tools, bad lenses, all that stuff. It's so hard to do that now. Like most of the, if you go on Reddit on the cinematography subreddit, so many of the people asking for question or asking for help with stuff are asking, how do I make my footage look bad? How do I make it look retro? How do
Yeah,
I
they're
make
all
it
trying to
look
use
like this
DV
this
now.
shitty? Yeah, yeah, because we can't do it anymore because you can go out and buy an FX3 or something, it costs you a few $1,000s, and you can make a movie that looks professional and polished. You have to get the right lenses and you have to learn, about log and all of that stuff. But it's never been more accessible to have a polished image. But if you don't also develop your style and your art and your ability to light and your ability to compose interesting frames, you're going to get a lack of style in your work. And that's going to contribute a little bit, I think, to what people have pointed out there.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, to your point about grading, I think I've at least tried more and more to be a little more hands off, or maybe when I'm grading, better way to say it is using broader strokes.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think even if you've got something incredibly contrasty, even in the image with hard light or whatever,
Yeah, yeah.
if you start like, I think I said this in a different interview, but like keying out skin tone and having it not match,
Yeah.
like everything's green and then skin is perfectly on the line, like it
Mm-hmm.
just doesn't
Yeah.
look natural
Because it looks
because it
impossible,
isn't.
and
Yeah,
it's the same thing as so much of the CG that we see these days uh, is laughably fake to us, not because the fidelity is bad. There's no point in the frame that you could look at it and say, oh, there's the bad roto line or something. It's all perfect. It's laughably fake because it's an impossible shot. The shot could
yeah.
never have been done.
And the
And
artists are probably rushed,
the
so
artists
they
are,
had to hit
are,
render
are
at some point.
yeah, yeah, and it's the gosh, it was just that it was like the Netflix movie and the TSA agent and all of that. Um, it was
I
it
know
was
what
like
you're
Die
talking about.
Hard. It was Die Hard for people who want to be in the TSA. Uh, but there's a scene in there where there's
Flight
like
plan.
a car crash, and sorry,
I think it was flight plan. Oh.
my wife told me carry on.
Yeah.
This was his name. Thank you. Um, there's a scene where there's a car crash, and the effects that they use in it are good. Like it looks correct, but the shot that they do with those effects is a shot that cannot physically happen in the universe.
Right.
So it doesn't matter how good your effects are because the viewer is instantly knows that it's CG because there isn't a way for a camera to do this. So it looks fake, and then we start laughing about bad effects, and all the VFX artists feel bad. They didn't do a bad job; it was bad direction, if you ask me.
Yeah, that's
Um,
the Todd Bazari thing. It's all about shot selection. Like that's how
yeah,
you get good VFX is shot selection
yeah, absolutely.
and
It's
time. Yeah.
shot selections, shot design. I think limitation is a very important thing in style and filmmaking because it forces you to sort of like narrow your focus and really think about what you're trying to do. And that's why all of when people think about Steven Spielberg, they're not thinking about his recent movies. They're thinking about Jaws and whatnot. Because back then he had lots of limitations, and he had to think about what he was going to do. Like when the Bruce the shark animatronic didn't work on Jaws, they had to keep making the movie, and he had to like design his shots now without seeing the shark, and he had to like put that into the story and like really think about it and be careful, and that extra attention made the movie so much better. Whereas now you see this with a lot of really good directors. As the budget increases and the amount of people who will say no to them vanishes, I feel like the movies start like losing a little bit of that shape and style that they developed in their earlier careers.
You know what's interesting is when I
Yeah,
think about restriction like that, I was thinking about lighting, obviously.
sure.
And the other, like last year, I rewatched a series of unfortunate events, and
Yeah.
I was fascinated by it because I knew they shot film, and it's Emmanuel Lubezki, and I was like, but the lighting now,
No,
now that
really?
he shot it, I'm pretty sure. Yeah,
That's
you've
crazy.
got
That's
the internet.
awesome. I'm
Um,
looking it up right now. Yeah.
yeah, so I'm watching it, and it's so bold in that he literally was just, it would be like a 12 by that he would bang a bunch of light through, no
Hmm.
gels. Just everything is just this massive, soft, unmotivated source for everything. And it
Oof,
looks
yeah.
great. But it's just one light. He just had one, one source, whatever, just
Yeah.
all the time. And I was like, this is fast. And then obviously I leaned into like, oh, this is when they started using ENR selectively and stuff. There's a great
Interesting. Yeah,
American
yeah. I
cinematographer
didn't know about
article,
that.
but yeah,
I'll have to
watch
check
that
that out.
movie
That's
again.
cool.
It's fascinating how like we would probably look at that now and go, well, this is unmotivated and looks weird, but like when you're watching the movie, it
Uh,
fits perfectly.
motivation is something you can use to elevate stuff, but it's not like a hard requirement. If you want unmotivated light, put in unmotivated light. I mean, some of the scariest, nighttime forest horror scenes out there are literally people just shooting flashlights at trees, like Evil Dead One. That's that night lighting in the forest is not motivated. That
Mhm.
is some indie filmmakers that brought some Lowell Todas, out to the cabin and
Oh
just turned
no,
them on. And
not the
I know,
Todas.
right, right. Sorry, I triggered you. Um, but
Burnt
but
so many things.
there's just no part of them that isn't dangerous.
No.
But you don't need motivation if the image works, right? Your motivation should be making a good image, and yeah, I'm all for it. I mean, obviously, every backlight in Renner is comes from nowhere. We never
Right.
see a light source that isn't a soft LED in the whole movie, but they've all got hard backlights. But it's part of the style. It's part of the little wheel, that you put on your image. So I'm all for it. I'm all for
Yeah.
it.
When I was one thing that I've been stealing a lot recently, I was talking to Eigel Burld, who he shot the holdovers, but he also shot
Hmm.
this series. I think it was Constellation the first time I talked to him, but he also shot the first season of House of Cards.
Oh, nice.
And so I was like, I love the way that thing looks. What
Yeah.
was that lighting like? And he's like, honestly, a lot of it was just replacing bulbs. And then they would get a tube, which at the time was a Kino,
Yeah.
and they would just dim it way the fuck down. And they would put it like just outside of frame so that there was this really chill scratch that was almost
Yep.
unperceivable. And that was it. And I've been using that on everything. And it's great.
Yeah. The tube keyside kick is like my go-to for anything. If
It's
if I
good.
ever have like a default look, it's that. It's key hard kick normally from a stereo, pin and bar, whatever it is. It just it looks good.
Yeah. How do we feel about top light these days?
I love it.
I
I
love
love
it.
it. I mean, it has a purpose, right? Like I'm not gonna top light, a makeup commercial, maybe,
Mm.
but if I'm ever like trying to give that vibe, I'm absolutely there. And you can control top light to almost any emotion that you need. Sinister, you'd have it mostly behind you and just like a little bit coming to like catch the cheeks. You have your classic, interrogation lighting or dramatic decision, kind of stuff where you're like a little bit raccoon, but
Mhm.
you can do top lighting all the way out here and throw in a bounce, and now you have a pretty person who's standing under some light. Was it Marvelous Miss Maisel? I think David Mullen does a bunch of top lighting in scenes, but he fills them in,
Yeah.
and you can see the shadows, you can see that they're top lit, but it still comes off with like that. He did such a good job having that like 50s vibe, but it was like polished and clean, like as if he brought an Alexa back, like into the time of the story.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that these, top light is good, top light is bad. You need a 3-point lighting, you don't need 3-point lighting. All of these things are sort of like missing the forest for the trees. It's you can't make artistic judgments about technical tools. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's about how you use the tools, and I know we've all heard that a million times, but people, you got to understand, it really is true. It really is about how you use the tools. And a lot of times when there's criticism for a type of tool or a type of technique, it's criticism of the choice to use it or how it was used, not the tool itself or the technique itself. Does that kind of make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah. Well, and also, no one would notice the tool unless you kind of messed up. You know,
Yeah,
no.
but there's also there's sort of like that cross section, right, of people that are getting into filmmaking and are sort of entry level or just like getting into the professional level, or students or whichever, and they start learning the words, and start like in grouping, right? By talking about it, and a lot
Mhm.
of in grouping is about poo pooing things.
Yep.
Like you're I'm a real DP because I use a Sekonic light meter, like that kind of thing, and I use a Sekonic light meter, but I would never think that somebody's not a real DP if they don't have one. and I think that there's a lot of that is sort of pervasive in culture now, especially with so many
Sony
people learning
fans.
filmmaking on YouTube and everything. There's a lot of YouTube creators out there that are trying to like teach you how to be a filmmaker. But the truth is, if they knew how to teach you that, they'd be off making films.
Yeah.
But instead, they're there, trying to get you to pay for a subscription or something. And it's I don't like the idea of like teaching people art through negation. Like
Right.
saying don't do this. It should always be do this, or oh, try doing this, or if that doesn't work, try blah blah blah. Because it's a creative, not a destructive process. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and another thing tangentially related to that I have to say is annoying is someone will, the entire internet is just a circle of conversation, right? And someone will say something new, bring something new to the conversation that they researched or came up with or whatever, and then everyone will steal it and present it as if it were fact or as if this is common knowledge and never credit that person again. Where you
Yeah.
don't see that is like the woodworking YouTube channels and like the tech people. Those
Yeah.
there, that's a lot of credit.
Yeah.
The video
Absolutely.
film creator YouTube is just Steel Central, and then they'll
It
put it in
is.
a PDF and sell it to you for $40.
I mean, hey, that's art, right?
Yeah,
Good art is stealing and borrowing, and sometimes people misinterpret that advice.
yeah. Um, we are pretty much coming up on time, but I did want to ask about that the series that I wrote COC, and I don't know which is something of
Circle of
Champions
confusion.
Circle. No, yeah, Circle of Champions, the Marvel gigs. That you
Oh,
have on your
the
site.
commercials.
Yeah, how'd you get a
Yeah,
hold of those?
that was it was through a friend that. Okay, so I gotta do this as quick as I can so people don't get bored. My entry into filmmaking in Los Angeles consisted of me doing a road trip from film school to LA. I went out with a bunch of my friends from film school. It was a wonderful 2 week trip across the country. We landed in LA with no jobs. I worked on Movie 43 and was promptly unemployed for the next 2 years. I lived on savings and that kind of thing. Eventually I had to get a job because working for AFI Movies for free somehow wasn't paying rent.
Yeah.
I got a job at a camera rental house called Strangel Films, and I was their equipment manager for a couple years. And what they did there was they would do consignment gear where people could bring in their cameras or their lights, park it at Strangel, and Strangel would rent it out, give a cut of the profits, like split it between the owners. One of the people who was bringing their lights in there was starting an ad agency, and I made jokes with him, and I was like friendly with him when he came in because I liked the name of his company, Marching Penguin, and I would, he would always be jokey with me, so I tried to make sure his stuff would go out first, and we just became friends. And then when I left Strangel to pursue freelance, he heard about it and liked me, and he was like, "Oh, you want to come, shoot some ads with me? I can't pay much, and they're not exciting." And we shot a bunch of ads for, retirement homes and things like that. And it's networking, right? Like you
Yep.
just make friends with people, and eventually he got the opportunity as an ad agency to do those ads for the Marvel commercials, for the Marvel COC commercials, and he came to me. And we shot all of them in the course of I think about a week,
Hey,
and it was a ton of fun. I really enjoyed that. We had a trained squirrel, which
I saw that.
if you're wondering how trained a trained squirrel is, the answer is not. We weren't allowed to let the squirrel touch the ground because we were told if it touched the ground, its instincts would take over and it would run away, and they would charge us for the squirrel.
Hence the backpack.
Hence the backpack, yeah.
Yeah,
But
that is
yeah,
actually a great sort of going back to the idea of like how do you break in. That's a classic story.
yeah,
Like
absolutely.
just putting in the work, taking jobs. No job is bad. I don't think anyone should be ashamed of any job they do.
No,
You
no.
know, even outside of film, just any job is good. But
One, I unless it's for Fox News.
don't take that job.
Yeah, don't take that job. Yeah.
Although I will say, I've been thinking about that. Not to get political on a DP
Do it,
show,
do it.
but
Let's do it.
I've been thinking about that. I'll make it more general. If I were hired to do a commercial for someone that I oppose, emotionally or politically or whatever,
Yeah.
is that better because the money is going to probably end up in the hands of people who I prefer, or is it not better because at the end of because the ad's going to get made anyway?
Yeah.
Like, what if I take that money and donate it to the opposing cause or whatever, you know?
I did that once. I went to do a job that I thought was for Fox Entertainment, but then it turned out it was for Fox News. And I took my day rate and donated it because I was like, I can't touch that.
Yeah.
Like,
That's
that felt weird. But you're absolutely right about that. But also, it's like if everybody that they came to for that work would just say no, screw you, then maybe they would quietly go away. But I'm not into fantasy movies.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I don't think that outfit's going away. But
nope,
not today. Well, I absolutely love chatting with you. I'd love to have you back on. Where can people see the movie? Because I know it's in limited release right now. Do you have like a distribution?
It's in limited release right now in theaters for a little bit longer. If you want to see it in a theater, you can go to the website rennerthemovie.com, and I think they have a list there. If you can't get to a theater for it, it will be released on streamers. So they do have a deal. I don't know the release date. I'm pretty sure it's somewhere early March. Around that time frame.
Well,
you can follow the movie or follow me on Instagram, and I'll make a post about it.
Yeah, this episode will come out probably mid-March. So,
perfect. Yeah, so that works out great then. So it'll be on. It'll be somewhere by then. I bet.
Yeah. Well, it was great talking to you, buddy. I really
it was great talking with you, man. Thanks for having me.
Frame and Reference is an Albot production, produced and edited by me, Kenny McMillan. If you'd like to support the podcast directly, you can do so by going to frameandrefpod.com and clicking on the Patreon button. It's always appreciated, and as always, thanks for listening.